This morning on your spotlight, we have the Minister of Public Utilities, Mr. Marvin Gonzales. Good morning to you, Mr. Gonzales.
Hi, good morning. How are you doing?
So
Good
far, so
morning.
good. How are you?
I'm good. Actually, good this morning. I had a long day and long night, but I got up feeling very energized because where public utilities is concerned, TNTech and WASA, most of the disruptions have been dealt with, and we just have a little bit to respond to this morning, and I feel very confident that both TNTech and WASA will resolve all the issues that we've been having over the last couple of days as a result of the adverse weather conditions.
Well, this is what I wanted to talk to you about this morning. What were some of the things that went wrong or the complaints that were received regarding the adverse weather conditions and public utilities?
All right. So because of the high winds that we experienced over in both islands, Tobago and in Trinidad, a lot of the lines, trees fell on power lines, it knocked down electricity poles, landslides disrupted WASA's distribution and transmission infrastructure, depriving communities of water all over Trinidad and Tobago. Most of WASA's plants, if not all of the plants, are energized by electricity. So the plants, especially northeast Trinidad, northwest, central, South Trinidad, Tobago, because of the disruption we had on the electricity grid, they could not have produced water to distribute to the society, to the communities. So a number of communities were left without water, and what caused WASA's response time to be delayed is because trees fell on roads, and so many of the communities were inaccessible. TNTech could not have accessed many of the communities as well because of fallen trees in the roadways, etc. And so, everything came together that made it absolutely difficult for the utility companies to respond in a very timely manner, and of course in a very safe manner, because you cannot go into the rivers to turn back on your pump if the rivers are coming down heavily. You cannot go into some of the rural communities if there are a number of landslides and trees falling in the middle of the roadway. So all of these things impeded the response time of the utility companies. But at the end of the day, I must say that the work that I've seen displayed both by WASA and TNTech, it is quite commendable. And I think it is because of the hard work that they have done over the last couple of days that most of the communities that have been affected by water and electricity as a result of the adverse weather condition, they are now seeing a return to normalcy. With respect to WASA, there are some areas in northeast Trinidad, northwest, Blanchisseuse, Lafayette, etc. They are still without a water supply, and that is because of the turbid and the dirty water that continues to come down our streams. But when it is safe to do so, and one of the plants or a couple of the plants, because there is no electricity in the area, and TNTech is attending to that at this point in time, once electricity is returned to the area, the plants will be back up and running, and we're expecting to see some kind of normalcy during the course of today and hopefully tomorrow.
All right, so Minister, every year we have rainy season. I assume every year that things come down in the rivers. That's how rainy season works. When rainfall, the rivers get full up with silt, with stuff coming down. So if we have a situation where, I don't know, God forbid, we have more than 15 minutes of this rough wind that happened. We had 15 minutes of it, and all this disruption happened. How vulnerable would you say both WASA and TNTech are to these adverse weather conditions?
Well, first, let's start with WASA. Very, 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 very vulnerable. It's vulnerable because, in my view, a lot of investment has not been done over the last, let's say, 15 or 20 years in looking at what are some of the things and some of the redundancy plans that we should put in place to address or to respond to difficult situations like these. Now, let's go again to the 15 minutes of heavy rain and wind last week, Thursday into Friday. Now, you made a point that yes, we expect the rivers to come down dirty, etc. But now it is a little bit different. It's different because the way in which we continue to treat our environment, it is impacting on WASA's ability to produce and to treat water to send to the various communities. In northeast Trinidad, we continue to struggle with illegal mining, and the illegal mining are very prevalent in some of the best watersheds that we have around the country. Northeast Trinidad is, it has a huge watershed. It produces millions of gallons of water. And the quality of water that we now see entering our water treatment plants, it is very troubling. And we have, as a country, from a whole of government approach, to tackle the issue of illegal mining and deforestation that continue to impact the watersheds in some of around the country, so that WASA's ability to produce clean and potable water to the country will not be impeded by how we treat the environment. And that's the reason why we continue to see WASA's plant be more vulnerable as it is right now, because of what is taking place on all our hillsides around the country, the development that we are seeing taking place on our hillside. Now, I'll tell you this, 60% of the water that WASA produces are what you call surface water, meaning water that is extracted from our rivers and our streams. Groundwater is water that you extract from our underground wells. So groundwater is not as vulnerable as surface water. Surface water is very much exposed to the conditions in our environment, what is taking place in our watersheds, what is taking place in our forests, etc. And once we start to behave in a way that impact the watersheds, cut down our trees, etc., then mud and silt is going to come down into our water courses, and it is going to impact utilities infrastructure. And I mean, if you don't shut down the plants in situations like that, mud water will flow into the homes of people. And that's the reason why you always hear heavy rains in northeast Trinidad or some parts of the country. WASA has to shut down its plants because of the mud water that flows into some of the main water producing plants.
But Minister,
so as a country and from an integrated water management perspective, we have to tackle the issues that we have in the way that we treat our environment, the issue of illegal mining, so that our watersheds will be adequately protected, and that the water that flows into some of the main water producing plants, the quality of the water will not be impacted by the way in which we as citizens treat with our environment. With respect to TNTech, of course, most of our lines are overhead lines, and it will always be susceptible. Even the best infrastructure that you have, once most of your lines are overhead lines and you have powerful winds, you stand the possibility of those lines being knocked down by the heavy winds. And what we have to do is to continue to ensure that the maintenance that we have, especially in some of the rural communities, are maintained, so that we reduce the possibility of lines being disrupted and electricity being disrupted by adverse weather conditions. And I must say, given the strength of the winds over the last couple of days, the prolonged weather condition, we in TNTech had 431 reports of disruptions around the country, and in 2 to 3 days' time, all of the reports have been attended to. So the utility companies did their best in the circumstances to return Trinidad and Tobago to a sense of normalcy after a couple of days of adverse weather conditions.
Definitely, and congratulations to the utilities on that, and hopefully they can get the rest restored in short order. Minister, I'm curious though, how are we going to move forward hoping to mitigate some of these things? You mentioned, yes, the environment and the way we treat the environment plays a very, very crucial role. However, I still find it troubling that we don't seem to have a system set up, or do we rather have a system set up where we can filter that water rather than having to shut down the pump entirely for the WASA situation?
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, what WASA doesn't have going for it at this point in time is adequate storage of potable or treated water. Most of the water, they are treated at the water treatment plant, and immediately once they leave the plant, they go directly onto the distribution grid, into the homes, into the communities, into the industries, the businesses, etc. From the plant, into your transmission line, into your distribution line, and into the various homes and communities, etc. That's not the best way. And what I'm trying to do over the next year or 2 years is to increase WASA's storage capacity. Because if the water go into a storage capacity, then distributed across the various communities, then the authority would be able to address the issues of disruption on its plants, because you will have the capacity to feed the community with water for a couple of days, even though the plant may have gone down as a result of turbid water conditions or whatever situation that the plant might be faced with, power failure, etc. So we do not have, as a country, sufficient water storage at key installations around the country. And in order to address this, this is a massive vulnerability that we have in the Water and Sewage Authority, and we need to tackle it and to tackle it very quickly, especially given the adverse weather conditions we have been experiencing over the last couple of years or so, and more so recently. So what we're trying to do, and what we will be doing over the next year or so, is increasing our storage capacity in East Trinidad, in West Trinidad, Central and South Trinidad, so that many communities that are directly connected to the water producing plants will now have a buffer between the plants, the storage tanks, and the communities, so that in the event that things happen, in the likely event that things happen at your water producing plant, those communities will be assured of water at least for 7 days, so as to allow the authority to address the issues on the plant, and the community not being directly impacted by disruptions that take place on your tank, at the water producing plant. It's like your home. You have a 1,000 or 2,000 gallon tank, and you don't get water flowing into the distribution main from the Water and Sewage Authority. And that storage capacity that you have in your house would be able to afford you a water supply for a couple of days, until such time the water comes from the Water and Sewage Authority or from its distribution line. And in essence, this is what we're trying to do. All right. You implement and you put storage capacities around the country, especially in your most populated areas, so as to allow that level of sustainability for a couple of days.
And that buffer as well, to make sure that if things were to go wrong.
Buffer, right. So that when disruptions take place at your producing plant, the communities will not feel the direct effect.
Understood. We look forward to seeing you make that change happen, because I do think it's important and necessary. Another necessary change, or maybe I think it's necessary. I want to know how you feel about it. You mentioned before that the overhead power lines at TNTech would be vulnerable to the weather conditions. And, you know, climate change is real, and we see that all over the world. Things have been changing consistently. How does the Ministry of Public Utilities feel about underground power lines? Is that something that we're looking to do, to implement?
It is very important, because most of the communities that did not experience a disruption in their power supply would be communities that were constructed in such a way that the power lines have been placed underground, or there's a utility corridor underground. I can tell you that the Ministry of Works and Transport, and the government, in the construction of highways, etc., we are looking seriously at the construction of utility corridors, so that our power lines, our water lines, etc., internet, etc., will go into that utility corridor underground. So whenever we have disruption on the network, it will be easy to access, so that you can, lower the time in which you respond to the disruption. And of course, it's placed safely in an underground utility corridor. It reduces the impact that you can have as a result of adverse weather conditions. It is very expensive.
That was what I was going to ask you.
You can't put utility corridors all around the country in 2 to 3 years. That is $1 billion. That's billions of dollars to be done. But it has to be done incrementally, so as to reduce the impact that our societies and our communities feel as a result of adverse weather conditions, especially in the rural community.
Yeah. Minister, has that plan already been put into effect at all?
Yeah, there are a number of some of our highways that we are constructing right now. They have utility corridors. A number of the communities, housing communities that we are constructing all over Trinidad and Tobago, we have utility corridors where the power lines, the TNTech and telecommunication lines are placed underground.
All right. Well, Minister, I want to thank you for joining us. I'm going to let you get to all the work you have to do today to make sure everybody gets back their power and their water safely.
Yeah, so I just want to also say thank you very much, and to commend both TNTech and WASA and the Meteorological Services Division for the work that they have done over the last couple of days in bringing a semblance of normalcy. There's one major issue at the North Old Pooch water treatment plant, where one pump is still down, and the plant is producing 5 million gallons of water less than its real capacity. So a number of communities in East Trinidad continue to feel the effects of that. But I'm advised by the technocrats at WASA that by the end of today, the pump will be back up and running, and therefore Northeast Trinidad will see a stabilization in their water supply.
So by tomorrow morning, everybody in Northeast Trinidad should have backwater like normal.
Yes.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Minister.
Thank you very much for having me, and God bless you.
Take care. Enjoy your day. That's Minister Marvin Gonzales, the Minister of Public Utilities, joining us, letting us know that everybody in Northeast Trinidad who may not have water now because the Orapuch Gardens is down, tomorrow morning, everything should be in a gear.
Holding him to that.
We have to hold him to that. That's what we're here for. We recorded the entire interview. It live on Facebook, it live on TTT. So, Minister, you're going to be held accountable. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Let's take a quick break and come back with more Inside the Now Morning Show. Stay tuned.